There are moments in life when you feel that something needs to change. Not because of a disaster, not because something has collapsed, but because your heart senses quietly that you cannot keep living the same way. There is a spiritual urgency, a feeling that God is trying to speak to you before time catches you off guard. And what many never understand is that this gentle voice is not just a warning, it's an invitation, a call to wake up before it's too late, a divine summons to open your eyes before the world closes opportunities that will never return. Because there are truths God placed in His Word so we could live by them, grow through them, avoid unnecessary pain, and reach purpose. Truths that were not created to decorate walls or be read only during services, but to shape decisions, thoughts, and paths. And among all the riches of Scripture, there are 7 proverbs that not only guide life, they can redefine it. Proverbs that carry wisdom so deep that ignoring them is, in a way, choosing to walk blindly on a road full of cliffs. And the most remarkable thing is this. These proverbs don't start working when you notice you've followed them. They start the moment you decide to listen to them. Because life does not change when circumstances change. Life changes when the mind changes. And the mind only changes when wisdom enters. But most Christians live in a rush, reacting, putting out daily fires, trying to manage crises that came from choices made without reflection, decisions made without prayer, and paths taken without direction. Many lose years trying to understand why life feels heavy, unstable, or confusing without realizing that, most of the time, the root is the lack of applied wisdom, not the lack of faith, not the lack of effort, the lack of wisdom. And that is why the Spirit of God left these 7 proverbs as key spiritual doors that unlock clarity, direction, protection, and balance. Keys that can change your life if you apply them before time forces you to learn through pain. The first one says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom." This is not an invitation to fear. It is an invitation to order. It is God saying, place me in your first thoughts, in your first plans, at the center of your decisions, and everything that feels cloudy today will begin to align. Because those who live ignoring this truth spend life trying to do what only God can do. Hold the world on their shoulders, and when you try to be your own God, you eventually become exhausted, crushed, frustrated. But when you return to God, the place that belongs to Him, something happens within you. The inner chaos quiets, the rush loses its grip, anxiety decreases, the mind clears, and your steps find direction. The second proverb says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding." There is a depth in this that many never access. It is not about abandoning logic. It is about recognizing that human logic is limited by what it sees, while God sees everything. What you don't see, what you never imagined, what you don't know. How many times have you made decisions based on that it feels right feeling, only to discover months later that it pulled you away from a path of peace? How many times have you rushed when you should have waited, or waited when you should have moved? Trusting in the Lord means allowing Him to adjust your timings, your rhythms, your burdens. Because trust is not a feeling, it is a decision that changes destinies. The third proverb declares, "A wise man listens to counsel," and this is one of the most neglected truths of our generation. We live in a world where everyone wants to speak, few want to listen, and almost no one wants to be corrected. But God does not design growth in isolation. Pride closes doors. Humility opens them. There are battles you fought alone that would have ended long ago if you had listened to the right voice at the right time. There are mistakes you made that could have been avoided with a simple, "help me understand." God always sends counsel before He sends consequences, but many only realize that when it's too late. The fourth proverb says, "Above all else, guard your heart, because the heart is the center of emotions, intentions, and choices, and what you fail to protect inside eventually shows on the outside." A wounded heart creates rushed decisions. A bitter heart creates harsh responses. A tired heart creates quitting. A neglected heart creates internal storms that become external storms. Guarding your heart is not closing yourself off, it's filtering what enters, healing what hurts, and giving God what you cannot fix. The fifth proverb warns, "There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end leads to death." And this is perhaps one of life's most urgent truths, because there are paths that shine but deceive. There are doors that attract but imprison. There are opportunities that please the eyes but empty the soul. Every spiritual trap begins with something that seems right. Every fall begins with a step that felt safe. That is why God calls us to seek discernment before we seek results, because what seems right is not always from God. The 6th proverb teaches, "Go to the nth, you sluggard. Consider her ways and be wise." This is not a rebuke, it is a revelation. God is silent. There are things that can only be built with consistency. There are doors that only open with discipline. There are victories that only come to those who do not quit. The end is not fast, not strong, not impressive yet. It wins because it is constant, and many Christians expect spiritual results without practicing spiritual habits. They want peace without prayer, direction without meditation, strength without devotion. God's wisdom reminds us, what you choose daily transforms more than what you choose once a year. And the 7th proverb seals everything with a golden key. A gentle answer turns away wrath, because many of the battles you fight do not come from the devil. They come from poorly chosen words, uncontrolled impulses, reactions made too quickly. There are wars you enter that you never needed to fight. Relationships that break because of seconds of anger. Wounds that hurt for years because of words spoken in minutes. Wisdom doesn't just change what you live, it changes how you respond to what you live. And when you bring these 7 proverbs together, something powerful happens. Your life begins to align, your mind strengthens, your heart stabilizes, your choices gain direction, your soul finds rest, and what once seemed confusing starts to make sense. Not because life became easy, but because you allowed God to teach you before it was too late. Because wisdom applied at the right moment saves destinies, restores paths, protects journeys, and transforms people. And when these proverbs begin entering your life, something shifts from the inside out. It isn't immediate to human eyes, but it is immediate in the spiritual realm. There is a subtle, almost imperceptible reorganization that begins in the mind, moves through the emotions, and eventually reaches the decisions. God works like this. He transforms what no one sees first, so he can later change what everyone will see. And you begin to notice something is happening when, suddenly, situations that once shook you no longer knock you off balance. Words that once hurt you no longer affect you. Paths that once looked irresistible no longer deceive you. The heart begins to distinguish truth from noise, and for the first time in a long time, you feel stability. But this transformation does not happen while you're trying to control everything, fix everything, understand everything. It begins when you decide to listen, absorb, apply, and hold on to each of these truths, before time forces you to learn through the most painful path. Most people only change after they lose, only grow after they suffer, only mature after something breaks. But God is giving you the chance to change before it's too late. And what's curious is that as you begin applying these proverbs daily, God begins showing you things you never noticed. One of the first is that many of the battles you fought weren't spiritual, they were emotional. Many of the doors that closed weren't attacks, they were consequences. Many of the pains you felt weren't persecutions, they were warnings. Because wisdom exposes the origin of things. It separates accidents from choices. It reveals when it is the enemy attacking and when it is you insisting on the wrong path. And with that, you begin seeing life with a clarity you've never had before. And then you realize that the fear of the Lord does not limit you, it frees you. Because when God is the center, fear loses space, anxiety loses strength, doubt loses voice, chaos loses authority. The heart finally breathes. You begin to see that trusting the Lord is not an escape, it is a strategy. A divine strategy that saves you from paths you would certainly choose out of impulse or emotion. And only later would you discover that they weren't paths, they were traps. God's wisdom does not come to complicate your life. It comes to simplify it. And the more it enters, the clearer the difference becomes between living and merely surviving. Because living is walking with purpose, direction, and peace. Surviving is simply enduring the day, trying not to get lost in the chaos. And many spend years merely surviving while God is offering instructions to start living. When you start listening to counsel, you discover that the right voice at the right time is worth more than years of frustrated attempts. You discover that humility opens doors that strength alone never could, and you understand that God always places someone in your path. But it is up to you to choose whether to listen or ignore. Wisdom always arrives before the fall, but most only recognize that afterward. And guarding the heart becomes one of the greatest challenges, but also one of the greatest protections. Because when you realize that your emotions are the doorway to your decisions, you begin treating them with more care. You start watching your thoughts, filtering conversations, avoiding environments that wound your peace. You learn that not everything deserves your energy. Not everything deserves your response. Not everything deserves your time. And that awareness alone prevents half the battles you once faced. And then you begin looking at the paths that seem right with a new perspective. You stop being impressed by the superficial shine of opportunities and start asking, does this draw me closer to God or farther away? Does this honor my values or compromise them? Does this build me or destroy me? Because now you understand that not every path that seems good is good. Not every open door is from God. Not every invitation is a blessing. Wisdom creates discernment, and discernment saves destinies. And when the proverb of the ant begins to manifest in you, your routine changes. Life stops being a cycle of impulses and becomes a daily construction. And then comes the final key, the gentle answer. And this may be one of the most transformative of all, because it changes relationships, heals atmospheres, rebuilds bridges. You begin looking at your own story and realizing how many times God tried to teach you before it was too late. You remember moments when something inside you told you not to go, but you went anyway. Remembers people God used to warn you, but you ignored. You remember opportunities that looked perfect, but led to exhaustion. And, in the silence of reflection, You understand that God never stopped speaking, you simply weren't listening yet. Wisdom was there, but hurry spoke louder. Fear screamed louder. Emotions led faster. But now something has changed. Now you understand that you can't keep living by reaction, you must live by revelation. And as that clarity arrives, you see a powerful truth. God does not give you wisdom to keep you from living. He gives you wisdom to keep you from losing, to keep you from losing years, losing peace, losing relationships, losing purpose, losing opportunities, losing yourself. Wisdom is not a restriction, it is protection. It is God saying, I love you so much that I will teach you before you get hurt. And when you understand that, you surrender, you open your heart. You allow the Proverbs to enter and dwell within you. And as you allow this, your life changes, even when nothing around you changes. The environment may be the same, but you are not. The routine may be the same, but your steps are not. The same people may surround you, but your reactions are no longer the same. And this creates a chain effect. The more wisdom enters, the less anxiety dominates you. The more discernment grows, the less deception surrounds you. The more you guard your heart, the less the world can wound it. The more you learn to trust, the less you despair. The more you respond with gentleness, the fewer unnecessary battles arise. Life does not become perfect. Life becomes possible, becomes lighter, becomes aligned. And deep inside, this is what God wanted all along. To bring you into a place of inner stability, a place where you don't need circumstances to be perfect to have peace, where your joy does not come from what you have, but from who you are in Him, where your decisions are not led by fear, but by wisdom, where your relationships are not guided by pride, but by gentleness, where your steps are not moved by hurry, but by divine direction. And when you finally reach this place, you understand that these 7 Proverbs are not just advice. They are anchors. They are pillars. They are paths God placed in Scripture to prepare you, protect you, and position you. And you understand that when you live by them, you don't just avoid mistakes, you draw closer to the destiny God designed for you from the beginning. A destiny that can only be reached by those who choose to listen before it is too late. And then, with a more sensitive heart, a clearer mind, and a more awakened spirit, you realize there has always been a choice before you. Learn now or learn later. Grow through wisdom or grow through pain. Walk with God at the start of the journey or call on Him only when the weight becomes unbearable. And now, you've chosen the right path. You've chosen the right voice. You've chosen wisdom before the fall. Chosen God before desperation. Chosen light before darkness. And that decision changes everything. Because when you decide to apply these Proverbs, today not, tomorrow your life begins to change. Before time forces you to change, you honor God, protect your future, heal your present, and restore what there is still time to restore. You finally understand that wisdom is not for those who know little, it is for those who want to live much. And when you embrace this truth, you discover that life with God is not just possible, it is transformative. And that is why this message arrives to you now, not as a late warning, but as a divine opportunity. A chance for you to align your mind, your heart, your decisions, and your path. Before it's too late, before time closes doors, before wrong choices create unnecessary pain, before hurry leads you away from purpose, before life forces you to learn what God is trying to teach with love. You are called to live by wisdom, to walk in the light, to discern what few people see, to apply truths that save destinies. And today, these 7 Proverbs become not just words, but foundations. Not just advice, but pillars. Not just verses, but direction. And in the end, you realize that this is not just a text, this is an invitation. A divine invitation to live the life God dreamed for you before it's too late.